Hey everybody, welcome back to the JK Man podcast. As you heard me say a little bit about last time, today we're going to be talking about pirates because I just find them really interesting, let alone a little bit cool. Like, some of the things I like about it is the fact, like, as far as real ones go, they basically had, I wouldn't say no worries, but almost no worries aside from if they found a ship to kind of like raid, whether it be like the Spaniards or whoever other ship is out there, like merchants and whatnot, they can end up stealing food, wine, possible weapons and whatnot if they're on board. But the big one, just like we're all told when we're little, the gold, the jewels, the buried treasure, more or less. Other than that, you basically get to do and live however you want, besides keeping in mind that you got to listen to the captain. You don't really have to worry about a legitimate job or any of those things, or worrying about, like, depending on if you're a noble, you get treated well. If you're not, you get treated like a piece of shit. Kind of like a little bit of in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie when Will's being treated like shit because he's just a blacksmith. How dare he talk to Elizabeth, being part of that noble family or whatever the hell he was. And then once he ended up setting sail, like his father before him, yeah, he had a lot of problems and shit along the way, but he at least was able to live how he wanted. That also made him kind of feel free at the same time, as well as eventually meeting his father and sailing with him for a little while because he hasn't seen him since he was a little boy, or yeah, something like that, since he washed up on a piece of what's left of a destroyed ship and then fished out of the water by a young Elizabeth. But then you got some of the negatives too, like you're not guaranteed to find the treasure. You're not guaranteed to have food, let alone wine or water on a regular basis, because it all depends on what you're able to find or what you're able to buy. And if you can't find any fucking gold, you can't pay for food. Especially when a typical crew had what, 20, 30 guys or so on there, plus possible slaves and whatnot that helped with maintaining the ship, whether it be scraping off the barnacles or swabbing the deck or whatever the fuck it may be. But then you also got the fact that their living quarters kind of sucked because you're at mercy of the sea. So as long as you're out there, you got the movement of the ship. So you got to hope you're not, seasick or you get the jelly legs. And then also, because of the waves smacking the ship around, depending on the size of the wave, whoever's on top, they're going to get soaked constantly. And then whoever's like down below, they got to constantly worry about if they're going to fucking fall into something. Or then when it comes to sleeping, say it's a stormy night and the ship's rocking like a motherfucker. Most of them, unless they had like actual cots, were in hammocks. So I could only imagine how it looked like when you accidentally blow a bit of water or some shit at a spider on their web and they just start going. And then the biggest one of all, even though they didn't give a shit, you got no way of taking a proper shit or going to take a proper shower. So you're like doing your business in a bucket, unless you're like the captain. Then I think, even though there's just a hole that probably leads into the ocean, he has essentially the builds of an outhouse without the actual outhouse part. And then as far as taking a shower, that's almost non-existent unless they're on land and they think about actually going to a bathhouse instead of spending most of their money like they do gambling, drinking, and then possibly prostitutes. Kind of like the ones that smacked the shit out of Jack Sparrow when he showed up on his little dinghy the one day when he was talking about how he has the Black Pearl, and he shows up in this little bitty thing because his crew stole his ship on him. And then when he got off the thing, they both walk up to him. He knows exactly who they are, and they both smack him because he fooled around with not only them, but with both of their sisters as well. So they can still hold a grudge. Make sure you pay him, I guess. And then another cool part with the movies is they do incorporate some of the actual pirates from history, like the more current one. They're supposed to have a pirate on there. I think it's the first time that they showed a female pirate that we actually know, not just a character for the movie, but they're going to be introducing, if you can see that one, Anne Bonny for the first time. She's like some of the pirates out there, like Sir Francis Drake, or this guy up in here, like Captain Morgan. Whoa. Focus there. Yoy. Anyway, yeah, you get the gist. Captain Morgan, go figure, being a pirate, yeah, he's got a spicy rum. But he was an actual pirate out there as well, along with another one that they actually showed in the movies. Right here, you got good old Blackbeard, and then you can't see it in this because it's just a sketch, but like when you saw him enter to the ship to talk with the other pirate lords and whatnot, and it looked like his beard and mustache were kind of like smoking like they were on fire. That was something he actually did. It was to cause intimidation with whoever he meets, and for the most part it worked. Hence why he was supposed to be one of the most feared, possibly, pirates. Don't take my word for that. I don't know if he's the most, but he's like the most notorious that we learn about. And that was one of his tactics. So this is also the same guy who gets later in his career called like mad or crazy because he ended up going kind of cuckoo for a little while. Well, if you watch this documentary on Netflix, if they still got it, I think it's literally called the Pirate Documentary or something along the lines of that. I think it's about 7 episodes. They talk about actual pirate history, and then they brought up Blackbeard and how he did the smoke thing, and he had a few other things, a pretty gaunty looking sword, kind of like in the movie. But this is also the same guy, like most pirates, had STDs and stuff. Well, I believe he had syphilis, and he thought back then the way to cure it would be taking like the baster needle that you use on a turkey, fill it with liquid mercury, and inject that straight into his dick. And he did that so many times that the mercury, while poisoning him, which I think is what ended up killing him, possibly also somebody shooting him, the mercury made him go crazy. And that's why he started going cuckoo and whatnot. And then you got the goofy ones from the movie that we all seem to love. If I can get the damn screen to cooperate. There we go. Good old Jack Sparrow looking for his rum. Why's the rum gone? I'm just really glad that they plan on bringing him back into the next movie. Because, granted, there was some shit going on, so Disney had their reasons and whatnot. But I think the previous movie kind of bombed a little bit just due to the fact that they had to change so much in the story to make up for the fact that he wasn't in it. And it wasn't a bad movie, but it would have probably been a lot better if they focused the story around what it was bent on instead of having to add additional characters, whether they benefit the franchise or not, just to try to fill in the gap that you just caused yourself to make by getting rid of one of the actors out of the many that made the movie what it is today and why we enjoy them in the first place. Like, you got Orlando Bloom, great actor. You got Johnny Depp, and then you got so many more. It's just like you got an all-star cast, and it's been done before where they try to change the cast up a little bit because of either scheduling conflicts, disagreements with the directors or writers, or like in his case, he had allegations in court going on. And then you pull him out of the movie even after the fact of being proven innocent. And then because of that, just like all the other ones, you see that movie do good, probably box office wise, but in the end, it didn't get as many views as it probably should have due to the fact that it's not as good as the other ones. You're missing one of the key parts of the story, because even though he's a little bit of a comedic relief and all that, he's also what makes the story happen. Because if some of his bullshit, goofy antics didn't happen, some of the shit that we love in the movie, whether it be the fight scenes or the chase scenes or whatever, or like where they're acting like little kids towards each other with the insults, he is what brought that to the movie. Because as you can tell, they have their own fun too, but they're trying to be like the more serious pirates. They're willing to have a little bit of fun here and there, but they're all about getting the money, getting the wine, getting the food, and calling her good. Eventually, I've always wanted to in the first place, not like the really cheap costume shit, kind of like if you were to try to order a costume from like Wish, or like maybe get it from a Halloween shop where it's just a good enough costume to pass for somebody going, okay, I know what you are, versus the quality where it looks like you actually took a little time and dedication, kind of like the cosplayers or the LARPers, where it's not necessarily like legitimately the equipment and the clothing or the fucking body armor from back then, but it's real materials, possibly handmade, that's good enough to where it looks nice and like authentic without spending a shit ton of money on it. So at some point, I'd want to try to get the pieces together to create what my ideal pirate would kind of look like, because I always found the way they dress pretty cool too, regardless of like the fucking poofy shirts and whatnot. Like the boots, even though they could be uncomfortable, they had so many different styles. Then the hats, of course, and then like if you're a captain, whatever, you got personalized captain coats that look fucking awesome. Even though some of those pirates probably stole those coats off of like the British Army or whoever they killed, because you know, clothes is clothes. If I like it, it's mine. The way of the pirate. And yeah, they would target like merchant ships, and they would target like trading vessels, and like especially when it came like to the Spaniards and whatnot. But then they switched over the time to where now we still have pirates, but they usually hang around Africa, and they actually have fully automatic guns and whatnot now, boats with motors, but they always seem to target sometimes like shipment vessels, but also like cargo containers. It's like you're 3 or 4 like starving people because you're extremely scrawny based off of the footage, with maybe a few machine guns. Unless you somehow have a way to bust open the cargo containers, how are you going to steal anything? But they still try. That's why they got videos of them catching them trying to whether it be like a rope ladder or like a grappling hook back like in the old days. They got video footage of them trying to get onto the ship, and they have these extremely powerful fucking water cannons and blow those fuckers off the ship. It's like, you're gonna go after something that fucking big. Good luck. You're gonna need more than 4 or 5 guys. You'd probably need at least a good like 6 ships of 10 guys apiece. But based off of that one video that I've seen, at least, their ships aren't even like heavy duty anymore. Like in the old days, kind of like the one that's in the middle here, or even though this isn't as detailed as the ones you could get from a shop or a garage sale, you got this one like I got from Hobby Lobby. The designs of the ships and whatnot, their ships nowadays, they almost look like a slightly modified military blow-up boat. Like raft in a box type shit. But that doesn't stop them from still trying to steal, just like how they've always done throughout the years. Or the fact of, like back then at least, they would catch pirates because being a pirate was considered illegal. And sometimes they would kill them immediately, usually by hanging, or once in a while beheading. But or all the tortures that they had back then, like tying you to horses and you're gone and whatever. But other times they would keep you as a prisoner for a while, and if they do let you go for some reason, you usually get like a brand or some shit, like the letter P or something, so people know they can't do business with you, don't trust them, blah, blah, blah. You can't stay at this inn because you've been marked with the identifying mark of a pirate. And then sometimes if you get away, even with that not scot-free, but they let you out, and then you go back to being a full-on pirate, and all of a sudden, since you're doing what you were in trouble for the last time, and then say you try to go into town, and there's a lot of like guards and whatnot patrolling the damn place, you got them also looking on people's wrists and shit constantly, because if you're a pirate, they're gonna arrest you all over again, and then odds are then you will fucking die. Or they had this one place, they even mentioned it in Pirates of the Caribbean, it's a real place back then, kind of like a pirate safe haven, and sometimes there's like the militaries or some of the trading vessels that they go after also kind of coincide there sometimes, not all of them, because it's like a safe haven, but it's also kind of like a port where they do business, sales, all sorts of shit. So they'll have it where you can go there, you can sell shit that you took from other ships or wherever you got it, whether you like ransacked and pillaged a village or whatever, or you can try to trade items, possibly buy things like clothes. Most of them spent them on like fucking booze and food, and a lot of the times prostitutes, kind of like Jack Sparrow when he went and he got onto the dock and 2 girls come his way and they end up both smacking him, even though he knew who they were right away with a big smile because he's probably paid them once or twice. He got smacked in the face twice, partially for, I guess, messing around with their sisters, I think, but also possibly something to do with like not paying. And then as far as drinking goes, just like down here, why is the rum gone? They're drinking rum and shit constantly. So they figure that's more important than getting shit that could actually benefit me out in the seas. And they wonder why they get like scurvy, malnutrition, dehydration. They could be getting like fresh water and bringing it to the ship, or like other things, or like say they got a fucked up pistol, like they always use like the flintlocks and all that, which I would love to get one of those too, replica or not. They also would get like knives and swords and use swords most of the time. But those things constantly getting shoved in the sand, the mud, falling into the fucking ocean, covered in possible like blood or puke from drinking. You name it. Those things are constantly getting fucked up between the elements and bodily fluids and whatever else. So you'd think that they would at least try to buy a secondary gun, or maybe if they even had one back then, some form of a fucking cleaning kit, so that way while he's out there, if it gets dirty, he can clean it so it works good the next time. Or as far as like swords go, you got a chip in your blade. Well, that's a weak point. It could at some point fucking snap, or your blade's not as sharp as it could be. Yeah, that's more painful to your enemy if you're just focusing on causing pain rather than, making them submit or possibly killing them. But they could easily take it to a fucking smith and get it sharpened or fixed, or maybe even buy something that's a little bit better quality. Stronger, stays sharper longer, better handle grip, whatever. Which I know you can buy them online, even though they cost a pretty penny due to being usually handmade. I don't care if it's a prop, but I would prefer a real one. I've always wanted to have my own pirate sword, whether it be a replica of one from a movie or a actual functional one that I can customize myself. Obviously there's not a huge need for a fucking sword besides the fact that I want one, but at least it'd be like, hey, look at what I got. Just like I got a brother. Yeah, his are replicas, but they're still pretty sweet because for the most part they're pretty identical. My brother collects some of the swords from some of his favorite movies or like TV shows. Like I think he's got a Zelda sword, and he's got the Gryffindor sword and a few others and whatever. And at some point he'll probably get another one. The only sword that I have, because I got rid of the fencing sword that I bought for some fucking reason, is I have a replica sword of a Zelda sword, but part of the fucking hilt is broken, and I tried to JB weld that thing back together, but it wouldn't fucking work. Super glue wasn't strong enough, so I said fuck it, threw that chunk in the garbage. So now I got a master sword with only half a hilt on there. But that's the only actual sword that I have. I would love to get a real one, whether it be eventually getting the money, finding one that at least resembles one from a pawn shop or something, or maybe even eventually learn how to and make my own. So that way you feel like you earned it a little bit more. Kind of like with that costume idea I was talking about. Because it's not just to have. It would be mainly for like a Halloween thing, but it'd also be nice because I got to the point where instead of just getting a cheap, well, they're not cheap, but a cheaper material costume, I rather spend a little bit more money to create a little bit more detail, so that way you know what I am, but at least it's a little bit more realistic. So it looks like there's some thought into it, especially if there by chance happens to be like a competition, best costume or whatever at a bar or whatever. Better details usually help, except this one time where I went on a Halloween contest thing with my brother and some people, and there was a lot of really good costumes there. I mean, like, it almost looked like the people that cosplay or LARP, where it's so fucking realistic, or they at least put some effort into it instead of just buying some spandex. But they gave it to their friends, go figure, and their costumes weren't even anything special. Regardless of it being a brewery and them being the friends of the people running the contest, big fucking deal. You had 3 people and a dog dressed up as weird colored hops, what they make beer out of. Ooh. And it looks like when you watch Daddy Daycare, those fucking carrot and broccoli costumes, how it looks velvety and shit. That's basically what they looked like with weird ass colors, but they were just hops. Even though my costume was more realistic, I went as a leprechaun that year, and then there were some people there that went as either a movie character or like an anime character or something, and they put a lot of fucking effort. It looked amazing, but they gave it to that. Or there was another instance where went to a different bar, same thing, Halloween contest. I think that year I went as something to do with the Purge. And granted, our costumes weren't extremely special or anything because, you know, in the movies, most of them wear like hoodies, sweatpants, and gloves or whatever the fuck. But I at least went out of the way to get me a mask that looks like one they would use in the movie that lights up. I also got gloves that light up just like they did in the movies. And then I got the black hoodie and a black pair of sweatpants and a pair of like gym shoes because I know that's not the main outfit, but that's what a lot of them did. So close enough. And then some of the people that were with us had even more detailed versions of costumes. We went to where they had a costume contest. There were some ones there that were even better. Like there was one guy, I think he was dressed as Van Helsing or something. And then they gave it to the people who had, again, the least amount of effort costume ever. I think it was like a guy and his girlfriend, and they were dressed up. I don't know what characters they were at the time. Oh, a guy and her girlfriend, or his girlfriend. Granted, she did kind of look like her, but you could tell it was the least amount of effort possible. It was like Dora and her, even though it's her boyfriend, Diego. All he did was he bought some cargo shorts, a khaki colored fucking t-shirt with a collar and a pocket, and he wore a watch and maybe a pair of whatever shoes he wanted instead of how he's supposed to look, where it's the cargo shorts. He's got the safari shirt with, I think, a logo, a belt, jungle boots because they're in the fucking jungle, a watch, and some other shit. And then, like, the girl who did Dora. For the most part, she looked alright, but the book bag, it looked like she literally just bought a purple kids bag from the kids section instead of a purple styled actual backpack, which I know it's not a huge deal, but again, it's you could see the cartoon on the fucking back of it. And then as far as the shoes, yeah, she did good with that. Dora wore like white tennis shoes. Good. She didn't even have the fucking bracelet. And then she kind of dressed how the one in the live action movie did, but she tried to make it a little slutty. So instead of Dora having the normal pink shorts to go, I don't know, mid thigh or a little lower, she turned them into fucking booty shorts. And then as far as the shirt goes, instead of just a regular t-shirt, I forgot what color it was. It was one of those ones where it just sat a tiny bit under the boobs, so enough coverage, but enough to also show as much skin as possible. I mean, I get it. Good-looking people, they want to show it off, but at the same time, if you're gonna pick a costume idea, at least both of you be on the same page, whether it be a sexy Dora and a sexy Diego, or you're going or trying to be accurate to the show. But yeah, they gave it to them, and it looks like they just bought all their shit off of a clearance rack. Which, if that's how you can get your costume made, sweet, all the power to you. But if you're not at least going to try to accommodate the details and shit too, then what the hell you doing? Why are you giving them something that would normally go to the best looking costume or the scariest looking costume? Something. But yeah, then it makes you think back to as far as like the pirate shit. I got a little off track. Sorry. As far as the pirate stuff goes, I also, like I mentioned, I think the other week, how there's that podcast on there. There's multiple of everything, but there's that pirate history podcast which I listen to time to time, and it's getting to the point where I'm actually starting to get to more of the swashbuckler era, because it starts from sort of the beginning and then it goes up into like the Buccaneers and whatever pirate age they move to. So you learn about stuff, you learn about pirates, you learn about what they go through, and I just found it extremely interesting. But then at some point you watch like the movies and you hear the epic music, and then you get people on TikTok like Bobby Bass and all the rest of the people that do the bass singing on there. They made that awesome version of, they had it in the movie to Hoist the Colors, and it just sounds so powerful. Or then you get all the sea shanties out there like the Wellerman and all them, and it just makes you want to watch the movies a little bit more, or maybe learn about them a little bit more if that's something you like. Just like it's kind of a small dream, but at some point in the future, I'm not saying like hyper realistic full scale to where I can actually put it in the fucking water, but I'd like to make a mini ish, even though it would be kind of like a lawn ornament. It'd be my fucking man cave, but an actual like mini pirate ship for myself, and not just like this shit one that, okay, it's made of wood, it has a pirate flag, maybe a crow's nest and a wheel, but that's about it. No, I want something that actually looks a little bit like a real ship. I'm not saying it's got to be ginormous, but at least enough to where I can go have like a captain's room and then walk around on the deck and shit too. Just got to figure out what design and eventually get the land to make it on, which would be awesome, because then I could listen to all the songs I want, watch the movies out there, like say make one of the sails a color on the outside but like white on the inside, and then use that motherfucker as a projector screen, which would be cool, especially if you watch the pirate movies themselves. And then lastly, it's like, I get it if pirates aren't necessarily your thing, but if you enjoy them kind of like I do, it makes you slowly want to collect shit over time. Like, I ended up getting it from my mom, but I have this little metal treasure chest that it's also a piggy bank, but it's similar detail to a toy, but at least it's a little bit more realistic as far as the grooves, where the lock would go. It has, I think, it's either a captain with crossbones or a skull with crossbones on top of it. So it tries to make it look a little bit more realistic. It's just, since it's so fucking old, it needs to be repainted. Or like with the ship that I showed you earlier, even though there's better ones out there, like my mom has quite a few of them. But then there's the other shit out there. Like, I got a couple of ships in a bottle. I still have yet to put it together. But I also have a model kit of, I think it's supposed to be the Jolly Roger. Even though they cost a pretty penny, I would at some point like to go on to, I can't remember the website, but there's a few of them out there where they sell ship kits, whether they're just ships from back then in general or like a pirate themed one, where they give you all the shit to make it look as realistic as possible. Like, they give you actual cloth sheets or whatever the fuck it is for the sails. They give you actual, like, heavier duty, like, almost like fishing line or whatever to make all the ropes and whatnot. They give you actual metal mini anchors, actual metal mini cannons. They have, the little motherboard in there, so that way it looks like it's actually lighting up in the back of the ship, like where the captain's quarters would be. And then it's made out of wood, so it actually looks real, just at a smaller scale. And depending on how detailed and how big depends on the price. Like, there was one, it looked phenomenal, It was huge too. It weighed quite a few 100 pounds because of how big it was. But that one also costed probably quite a few $100s versus the smaller ones like I was looking at. Those alone are still at least a couple $100 or maybe $180, whatever. Just depends on the design you're looking for. But at some point, or even if I were to figure out how to make one in general or print off like, the little templates and just kind of figure it out on my own, I would like to make one at some point too. So that way I have something that's I made myself. So, yay me, I did something. Or just over the fact of it looks so much better than some of these little cheap mimic ones that they sell you at the store, like the fucking plastic ones. Or I know it's supposed to be simple for kids, but like that make a sailboat thing for kids where it's literally a chunk of wood with a hole in it, another dowel, a piece of paper, and a string and some wood glue. That's it. Granted, it would take some time and it would be a little bit more challenging, but I'd see it being kind of fun in the end. Well, I think that's going to be about it for this episode. If you enjoyed it or have anything that you want to say in the comments as far as like if you like pirates or what you like about them or who's your favorite pirate or in general, just let me know in the comments. Leave a like, maybe a follow if you want. Share it with your friends, your family, your loved ones, whoever. Thanks for tuning in. And also, I'd like to thank my family and everybody for supporting me through this and looking forward to the next episode. And as you can tell right over here, the sound's a little bit better. And I also finally got a mic that works with my goddamn camera. So we're finally getting a little bit closer to what I would like as far as the quality goes, because I got a little better lighting set up. Learning how to adjust the settings more, even though this is a little as far as like trying to get the color better or at least a little bit more clearer on the camera. And then at least, like I said earlier, a second ago, this thing actually working, because I bought one off of, I think it was TikTok, but I didn't read the full description too well. Because earlier on, besides just using the camera's audio itself, I was trying to use the cheap $20 wireless mic that I got from Walmart. So I plugged the USB-C onto the USB-C, and I'm getting absolutely nothing, but yet it worked on my phone. Then I finally realized that in order to get any other microphone other than what's built into this, I would have to plug in a headphone jack on the side that actually says mic. So I bought a microphone that I thought looked nice and would work, and I finally get it, and it's USB-C. I'm like, God damn it, maybe there's a way around it. So I bought an adapter and maybe a couple of other cords to try other options of getting that thing to work on the camera. And nothing I would do would work. The only way that thing would turn on is if it's plugged into what it's supposed to be. That one's strictly PS4, PS5, computer, and that's about it. Just like even though this one says it can't operate on an Xbox, this one says it's for computer, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, but as you can tell, it also works on the camera, because if you want a microphone that works with a camera that only has the headphone jack, you need to find one that has the headphone plug-in on the mic itself, and then as long as you got a male-to-male end so you can plug it in and plug it in, all you need to worry about then is adjusting your sound so the microphone quality is how you want it, and then also making sure it's plugged into a power source so it'll stay on during the whole recording session. Because I was messing with it when I first got it, just testing it out and whatnot, and I had it plugged into something, and I guess it idled out. So during the recording of the video, that I was doing for a test sample, the light went out, which means it's off. And then I went on there and played it back, and sure as shit, audio cut off because it decided to fucking idle on me out of nowhere, even though I could have swore I had that thing set to like shut off in 2 or 3 hours. But we're finally getting somewhere. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.